And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection, your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Tsimshian people. Airlines evaluate potential routes based on factors like passenger volume, competition, and operational efficiency. Airlines may also receive incentive from cities or airports to establish new routes, but ultimately the route must be sustainable and profitable to remain viable. On today's Open Connection, we open our archives to when Air Canada started flying into Terrace.
This plane could be sporting different colors taking off from Terrace later this year, or it may not be here at all. Air Canada has purchased Canadian Airlines, and changes are already underway for their regional subsidiaries.
The immediate results here was that Air BC did cancel their flight that comes in late in the evenings, stays here overnight, and leaves at 7 in the morning. That flight has been canceled. The announcement was that it would be on a temporary basis, I believe, until the 2nd of April. I imagine by the 2nd of April, there will have been a decision made regarding the sale of Canadian Regional, which is going to be up for sale, I understand, for 60 days. And if it is not sold, according to what I read from the Competition Bureau, it will then be folded into the Air Canada family of airlines.
Many people expect just one airline to be left serving Terrace later this year. The big questions for passengers are how many flights a day they'll be able to choose from, and what will they pay?
Well, certainly we would hope there would be at least 3 flights a day, one in the morning, one in the middle of the day, and one in the evening.
The main concern that I have will be the standard of service. If Canadian Regional disappear and get merged with Air BC, will it just be a Dash aircraft? Because there are problems with medical cases on smaller planes, with stretcher cases, with that sort of thing. So I would be more concerned about a deterioration of actual service as much as airfare concerns. The airlines are still a business. If they price themselves out of the market, then that isn't in their interest. So,
a lot of Northwest residents already believe the cost of flying in and out of the region is too high, and the airline takeover is making them more anxious.
Well, I think we're victimized because of living in the North by the airlines. I know that people can, if they can get to Vancouver, they can fly to Toronto or to England or to Hawaii or almost anywhere for about half the price that it costs us to get to Vancouver from Smithers or Terrace.
A workshop on airline services hosted by the Kitimat-Stikine Regional District last year dealt with the issue of pricing.
A short stage length, you have less miles to spread out your fixed costs. On a longer stage length, you have more miles to spread them out. So the cost per seat on a short stage length is much higher than a longer stage length that you see on a Vancouver-Toronto.
A lot of people still have a hard time buying the airline's arguments for fare levels in the Northwest, and the cheaper fares being offered out of Prince George by WestJet only rub salt in the wound. Travel agents say a family of 4 can save $1,000 flying with a discount carrier. Local politicians and airport officials have been lobbying WestJet to come to Terrace, but that does not appear imminent.
I think Terrace would be on their list of airports they'd like to serve. But I think their first priority is to develop their eastern routes. When they've just announced they're going to have a hub in Sudbury, I think they want to concentrate on developing their eastern routes now before Air Canada move into that market with their own discount airline, which they've announced. So I think Terrace might be less of a priority, but it is possible they could fly here, but I don't foresee that happening at least for a year or so.
While Terrace still, for the moment at least, enjoys some level of competition, Prince Rupert already deals with a monopoly. Air BC pulled its service last summer.
We don't have any immediate concerns. We have had a recent meeting with Canadian Regional Airports Manager and some of his staff. Local manager was included in that meeting. And they've told us that they're interested in remaining business partners with the Prince Rupert Airport Society. They anticipated really no changes. They think that Canadian Regional will be withstanding and staying in our northern region.
Along with concerns about fares, other issues have emerged with changes to air services. Both Air BC and Canadian have switched to smaller aircraft in the past 2 years.
The Dash 8 is an excellent aircraft. It's a quiet aircraft, it's dependable, and it's the backbone of our fleet.
But some customers are less enthusiastic about the smaller planes, especially when it comes to freight.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. The four main types of freight transportation are road, rail, ocean, and air. These modes of transportation are chosen based on factors like distance, cost, time sensitivity, and the nature of the goods being shipped. Let us return to the archives with George Clark.
These planes can't take as much freight. Their freight doors are very small, so they can't take large pieces of freight, which can be a problem. Large animals are a problem. Their cages simply don't fit through the doors on these aircraft.
That means some goods are now being trucked instead of flown, and the time delay can be annoying, not to mention expensive, if, for instance, it's a part for a piece of broken-down logging equipment. Along with the airlines that serve them, the Northwest's airports themselves are vital components to the air transportation system we all rely on. And they've undergone their own transformations in the past couple of years. They're no longer run by Transport Canada. Instead, local non-profit authorities are in charge.
The airport has been able to exist on its own. We're quite pleased about that. We've come to a first agreement with the employees of the airport. They've worked very hard to keep the airport open and in good shape. We're very pleased with that aspect. So, and we feel we can continue to balance the budget.
The transition wasn't as easy for Prince Rupert's airport. Its number of employees was cut from 16 to 7, and it's still looking for ways to cut costs.
We've had to sort of reorganize our employee structure, and we got involved in trying to multitask our employees, and that included getting rid of some of our contracted out services. We've taken over the fuel operation from the city. All of this is in an effort to try to gain more revenues and reduce operations costs.
One very unexpected cost local airports could be saddled with is emergency response. The federal government is talking about requiring firefighters again at regional airports.
They were removed by the federal government before the airport became part was inherited by the society. The federal government did that on the basis of a report they had commissioned. They accepted the recommendations and removed the emergency response services. Now they wish to reinstitute them at the expense of the local airport, etc., and the people in the communities in the Northwest. We're very upset about that. We feel that that's unfair.
Hamilton says restoring emergency response could cost his airport $300,000 to $500,000. He hopes strong lobbying from airports across the country will kill the initiative. On the revenue side, Hamilton expects pressure will also be required to ensure promised money for capital improvements is forthcoming.
Airports with under 100,000 passengers, which would include this one, only pay 5% of those major capital works under that program. The other 95% would be picked up by the federal government. And we're certainly looking forward with anticipation, although with some concern, to make certain that that program is followed through, because that's another thing that we took the airport over on that premise, that that fund would be available.
Many local airports have instituted new fees to help raise money for their part of upcoming projects like runway lighting and paving. Terrace is one of them, and a consultant has just recommended Smithers Airport do the same.
I've also recommended they set up a second reserve
Funding for northern airports is also an issue being debated by an organization representing communities and industry across northern BC and Alberta. It thinks the hubs in larger cities should be more supportive.
We know that we support an awful lot of travel into major hubs such as Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver. All of those centers are beneficiary of us being a collection point through our regional airports. We've got to find a way that we sit down with those people and also work that they can feel good perhaps about, in some measure, supporting our airports so that we continue to offer a feeder network into those major hubs.
But Burkhart's group also sees a larger problem facing smaller airports, one travelers may not want to hear. He says 18 airports spread across northern BC and Alberta are too many.
Nowhere else in the world do you have major airports 90 or 100 miles apart that service just a single community. There is a real trend, and it's one that I don't think we can deny or stop, that hubs serving several communities that are centralized are where airport or airlines are going to provide competitive costing. And if we want to have any service in the north, we've got to find a way that we work with those airlines in that manner. I don't think we can stop.
Of course, no community is going to willingly give up its airport, and our Northwest airports argue they remain viable. But Burkhart thinks some rational discussion about the future configuration of the entire network is required.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. In Canada, falls are the leading cause of injury-related death, hospitalization, and emergency department visits for seniors. Many falls occur at home, and the consequence can range from minor injuries to severe fractures and traumatic brain injuries. Let us return to the archives with Pawnee Wilmot.
I'm going to get sick. I'm going to fall. I'm going to fall on my dirty floor. I'm going to break something.
78-year-old Pawnee Wilmot has lived in Prince Rupert, Terrace, Usk, and Smithers over the last 50 years. She's never been more scared in her life than when she thinks about what will happen to her if the house cleaning component of her home support is cut.
My family helps me as much as they can. I do have 8 different chronic conditions, and each of them added on top of one another severely limits what I can do.
Home support is a service for the elderly and disabled who feel they can still live on their own with varying degrees of help, as well as people waiting to get into an extended care facility. The funding comes from the Health Ministry and goes to the Northwest Community Health Services Society, or CHESS for short. CHESS manages the budget and contracts out the home support care, in this case to Smithers Home Support.
Okay, what kind of things do they do for you?
All the right things. The things that I can't do myself. Clean my floors, clean my bathroom, they help me with my bath. They sometimes help me with peeling vegetables, opening cans, change my bed. The things that I can't do for myself.
Home support services have been cut across the province, including every area of the Northwest. In this region's case, CHESS will be running an estimated $325,000 deficit, some of it inherited from the province. So in order to reduce that amount, the CHESS board swung the axe in the hopes of cutting into the $400,000 it spends on housekeeping services every year.
In terms of the budget process, I mean, the Ministry of Health gives us our budget and said you must stay within. And as we looked at that, we recognized that we had clients with very high needs, at the ends of the personal care stuff, just to make sure they were healthy in terms of clean and being fed, that if we were going to continue to be able to meet that need, we had to take the resources from someplace else.
My breath, I find it very difficult breathing.
75-year-old Evelyn Ethier has emphysema and rheumatoid arthritis. Like Wilmot, she's a resident at the Pioneer Lodge, but she's on a waiting list to get into the Buckley Lodge Seniors Home. Evelyn's also afraid of any cuts to home support.
Because they have to wash me and bath me and do my hair and do the washing, and sort it and put it away, everything, because I can't do it. I can't even boil a kettle.
What we've done is basically reallocated the resources from providing cleaning services We've taken that away, if you will, and reallocated those resources to things such as providing bathing, feeding, toileting. The demand has been such in that area that if we're going to keep people out of facility in a hospital, that's where we had to focus.
When home support staff first heard rumors of the cuts late this past summer, an overflowing and worried crowd turned out for a meeting at the Legion.
And that's what we're here about tonight. We want to make sure that there are no breaks in care that people receive in whichever manner that they receive it, so long as it is given to them in the way they should have it.
Two things made the situation worse. First off, all anybody had to go on were rumors as to how deep the cuts were going and to whom. And secondly, invited board members of Chess and the Bulkley Valley Community Health Council didn't bother to show up to explain what was really happening.
This government, or whatever department or bureaucracy attached to the government, thinks about home support for people who are trying their best to look after each other. It's unforgivable.
Bulkley Valley Stikine MLA Bill Goodacre chaired the meeting, and embarrassed by his own government's actions, Goodacre gathered a list of 33 questions to present to the health minister.
But that's where I'll go first, is Penny Free's office. What happened here today?
So it's unfortunate that, you're right, the people in Smithers had anticipated, because they heard what was happening in other communities, and there was some anxiety levels that were beginning to rise as a result of that. In hindsight, certainly it would have been much better to have done everything across the region at exactly the same time.
If the uncertainty surrounding the cuts wasn't enough stress on home support clients, then came the one-on-one assessments by a case manager to see what services would be cut from each person.
Because what we didn't want to do was place people's health at risk by reducing cleaning services. So we asked them to pay very particular attention to that. And so as they went through the process, they took a look at it, said, okay, in this circumstance, their health will not be impacted, so we'll be able to make the change, or it will be impacted, so we would not make that change.
But what it does is it gets me into a standing position.
And what if housekeeping services are cut? The government appears uninterested in what happens. Get friends or family to clean the house, or hire somebody.
I guess my concern about doing that is, you're basically having to hire people you don't know to come into your home and trust them with your personal property and your money and everything else, and you could be lucky, and then again maybe you wouldn't be.
So far, out of 46 people receiving home support in the Smithers and Telkwa area, 41 have had some or all of their housekeeping services cut. According to the latest stats from Smithers Home Support Head Office, that works out to nearly 400 hours a month cut. Over a year, that works out to be a savings of about $125,000. Now, it could be just an unfortunate coincidence, but 5 people who had their housekeeping decreased ended up in hospital. That's hundreds of dollars a day more expensive than what it costs to care for a home support client full-time.
I can't say for sure that it would have or didn't cause the hospitalization. It is possible, I suspect, for there to have been some connection.
There could be a light at the end of this dark tunnel for both those needing house cleaning and Chess. The federal government announced last week that they'd be willing to pay half the cost of care in the home. Unfortunately, details haven't been worked out as to what exactly is meant by the word care. As well, the Bulkley Valley Community Health Council is now involved, trying to find ways to streamline the administration of health care for seniors.
In so doing, hopefully cut costs, and perhaps then also have a body to go to the government, the federal government and the provincial government, to because we can then justify and show the proof and evidence of the need.
For the time being, Chess says it will monitor each client's situation, with the first such checkup due next month.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
The saying, find a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life, suggests that if you are passionate about your work, you won't feel like it's a chore. However, even enjoyable jobs require effort, dedication, and can present challenges. In this final segment of Open Connection, we return to the archives with Sammy Robinson.
His name is Sammy Robinson, and he's heading off to work. He's been plying his trade for the past 48 years, and he still can't wait to head out to his shop every day.
Average day for me is about 12 to 14 hours. 16 hours is not uncommon. That's every day. I'm up at 6 o'clock every morning.
Robinson is a self-taught carver. He specializes in carving wood, but that's not all. About 10 years ago, he started carving gold. In fact, Sammy will tackle any object he can get his hands on.
I carve anything I can get in my hands. I carve soapstone, antlers if I can get it, anything.
Robinson is proud of the fact that he's never been given a grant of any kind, but he did receive a huge boost to his carving career. In 1976, he was invited to show his carvings at the Olympics in Montreal. From that moment on, Sammy never looked back.
That was my turning point. Yeah. That was my turning point, and everybody got to see my art from out of, from other countries,
Thanks to the Olympics, Robinson has become well known around the world. In fact, he has an open invitation in Finland and Japan, but he'd rather just stay around his shop. There are now a couple parrots in there to keep him company. Not that he ever gets lonely, though. Visitors from around the region and all over the world stop by to see Sammy and his work.
Sammy is the best. When you see his goldsmith work, when you see his carving out of any material, especially yellow and red cedar, just fantastic. Be able to see a guy doing his art.
I talk a lot, and I get a lot of visitors. Sometimes I don't get any work done. Yeah, I talk to a lot of people, and sometimes people come in for 5 minutes, and when my wife calls me for lunch, I invite them in the house, and my wife would look and say, "Oh, not again."
Robinson usually works on about 5 pieces at once. Sometimes one piece can take up to 3 years to complete, but for it to become officially finished, the project has to be up to Sammy's specifications. He's known for his quality work, not quantity.
I was always a perfectionist. I'd work on it till I'm satisfied. All my life I've never sold anything that I didn't like. If I didn't like it, I just kept at it until I liked it.
By the spring, Sammy will be carving in a brand new shop. After more than 30 years in the same building, he wanted more room and a change of scenery. The new shop has 2 levels, and it's located right beside the old one. But Sammy recently took a little too much initiative in his new shop. He broke his wrist after falling off a ladder.
I couldn't believe it. My son said, "Dad, it's broken." I said, "No, it's not broken, it's sprained." And I got the guy helping me to try and pull my arm. I thought it was dislocated, When he pulled it, my God, my heart almost stopped. So that's when I went to the doctor.
He's recovered from the injury now, and at 65 years old, he shows no signs of slowing down. For Sammy Robinson, carving is something that he was born to do, but he was also born to tell stories, and now he's extending an invitation to the public.
Just give me a call. My phone number is on the book. Give me a call and make sure I'm home. I'll gladly show you around. If the coffee pot's on, we'll have coffee. Come on over. Anybody's welcome. Everybody's welcome.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.